You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? It's your girl, Sade. Are you ready for another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast? Yes, because I am. Listen, y'all. I will have a totally different episode on YouTube. It will be the same content, but maybe worded differently because your girl had to re-record for you, my podcast listeners, because the sound was just not popping. Okay, so this is the second go-round of episode 24 with our book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Tawwab. You guys, we're on our last two chapters, chapter 14, social media and technology, and chapter 15, now what? Woo! Now what? Yes. So before we even get into the show, how are you guys feeling? I know it's like a mix of emotions. I have some friends that are really going through it emotionally with what has happened with the mass shooting in Buffalo and also what happened in Texas. And so pray for everybody connected, dealing, triggered, the world. Just that's all. I don't want to say that's all we can do. But pray. I'm a loss for words at this point. And then I have some that are like, they're good, but it's still tough because we have kids and everything. So it's just a ball of emotions just flying around, and then life happening on top of that. I can say for me, I'm doing okay. I struggled with some things that happened to me recently, and like I said, I'll kind of be able to channel those things maybe further on. But whenever I am feeling a type of way, I like hopping onto the podcast. It gives me the opportunity to break away from my norm. And while I'm encouraging and speaking positivity into you, I can encourage myself and speak positivity at the same time. So I'm just happy to be on here. I'm happy and blessed that you are checking out the Crew Book Club podcast. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you need to take a break from social media, the news, do not be hesitant to do that. That's a boundary that we have to learn how to set. You know, I stopped watching the news, and there's times where I literally had to get off social and stop listening to certain podcasts because the things that are being talked about are triggering. So it's not, don't think because you're not listening and watching that you don't care. You're just trying to protect your emotions and your mental as well. And that is number one. Okay. So let's not further ado and hop into the episode and get into who gonna check me, boo. God is, because God is always checking us, and it feels good to be checked by him because it keeps us in what? Chizek. This week's check comes from Acts chapter 2, verse 25 through 28. And y'all, I was literally I was reading the Bible one day and the story was good. I was just like, okay, God, you know, sometimes when you read, you're expecting this like, hallelujah, praise the God moment. And it's not going to happen every time, but just being his presence just bring you calmness and reading. And you might read and be like, okay, I ain't get nothing out of that. And that's okay, but it might hit you at another time. So this time I'm reading, and the last thing I read right before I was about to close the Bible was Acts chapter 2, verse 25 through 28. And it says, I saw the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest in hope because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead. You will not let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the paths of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence. I was just like, Oh, he heard me. He knew I needed that verse, that scripture that was going to catapult me into a hallelujah, praise God moment. Let me tell you the highlights in that. My heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest in hope. Woo! Rest in hope. You will not let your Holy One see decay. I will not die. And that don't have to be physically. That could be mentally, emotionally. Because that could be suicidal thoughts, whatever. But that rest in hope, like, and your Holy One, oh, he already letting you know you are holy, okay? And he say, you will fill me with joy in your presence. That tells you how important it is to be in God's presence. So whatever is happening and going around in this world, in your life, get in his presence, because that is where you will find joy. Whew. I hope that helps you just as much as it has helped me, because that just really, it did it for me. It did it. It's doing it for me now. Okay. So yes, that was the Who Gon' Check Me Boo. God is, and we welcome a good check because it keeps us in check. All right. So let's talk about some crew love. I would really appreciate you guys if you could leave a review for me on the Apple podcast. And if you cannot, do 5 stars. And better yet, share the podcast. I would really appreciate that, crew love. Thanks for all the DMs and the love you guys are showing on social and sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay, so no further ado, let's hop into chapter 14, social media and technology. And we all know there's a highs and lows to social media and technology, okay? So we have to know when to set the boundary, right? We need the boundary with tech. We need the boundaries with our phone. We need the boundaries with social media. I don't care how good you think you are. One of my boundaries I'm trying to practice is no social media after 8:30, 9:30. You know, latest 9:30. It'd be tough, but I'm really trying, y'all. I'm really trying. So, but anywho, you know, the author has this quote in the beginning of the chapter. She says, self-discipline is the act of creating boundaries for yourself. Discipline is good. And throughout the book, she talks about you have to be able to set the boundary with yourself first. Okay, because I'm a strong believer. If we do it with ourselves first and keep it real with ourselves first, it makes it a lot easier to do the same with other people. So things to remember when posting on social media. Okay, there are always someone out there whose standards you aren't meeting, and this is on page 235. She says some people like to argue. You got to just leave them alone. Okay. And once you start responding to them, you agree to partake in the argument. What people say about you is based on them, not you. So don't take it personal, baby. And do not take that thing personal. It don't got nothing to do with you on how they're responding. Explaining yourself over and over doesn't mean people will eventually get it. Some people just straight up fools. And we talk about that. God talks about that in the Bible. And when you read the Bible, y'all, side note, it doesn't, some of those words, a lot of those words in there doesn't mean what we mean it in the world. Like the word fool. I had said, okay, you being a fool right now to somebody. Oh, you call me a fool. I was just like, no, I'm sitting here going back and forth with you about real estate, which you're not the expert in. I'm the expert. And I was just like, I'm arguing with a fool. A fool is somebody who just, they don't want to get it. They choose not to get it. You can have all the facts, but they're going to be a fool because they don't get it. Okay. And you just got to lead them right there where they at. She says, sometimes you have to release people by using the power of the block feature. Block. Okay. It's your job to protect your energy. Okay. So whatever you need to do to protect your energy, do that. Block them, report them. I don't know. Take your comments off. Whatever you need to do, protect your peace, do it. For me, I want to see all of you. If you want to drop a little nasty comment, I want to see you for who you are so I can block you and not respond and engage with you. Okay? But do what you got to do, sis, to protect you and your peace. So those are things I'm reminded when posting on social media on page 235. Okay, so let's talk about signs you need boundaries with social media. Because if you know the boundary that you need, you can implement them. And she says some of the signs, here are some. You find yourself consistently checking your phone when you're supposed to be focused on something else. In social settings, you're glued to your phone instead of socializing. That's one thing I had recognized that I was doing. So I intentionally definitely try to leave my phone in my purse and engage. And I'm the friend, everybody can be taking pictures. I don't need you to take a picture with my phone because I follow all of y'all. I'm going to see the picture. I'll just save it. I'll just snap it when I'm done and being out of the moment. I love being in the moment because I remember the important things. I remember the feeling. I'm not focused on getting the pose. I don't even like to look at the picture after someone take it. I don't care because I'm enjoying myself in this moment and I don't want to get caught up in the photo. So that has become very easy for me. People have complained about your digital usage. Listen, my child has literally picked up my phone and hit it. And I was just like, okay, that's a clear sign. So definitely figure that out. And your technology usage hurts your mental and emotional health. Just talked about that. If you're watching the news or on your phones or computers and things are coming up that are triggering you, shut it off. Shut it down. If it's affecting your mental and emotional state and have you thinking irrational or wanting to do things irrational, check yourself and turn it off. That's how you know you need to set boundaries with your digital usage. She stated some other things on how technology may impact your ability to function and some others, but go ahead and get the book and read all of those things because we got to figure it out on how to set boundaries. All right. So let's talk about boundaries to consider. These are things that you can implement to help. Don't sleep with your phone near your bed. Oh, I had to get out that habit. And I used to have this excuse. Well, my alarm is on my phone. And no. And what actually helps is I put it in my bathroom, which is right across from my bed. And I put the alarm on loud and you want to get up and turn it off because that way you don't have that excuse just to lean over and hit that snooze button. You physically have to get out of bed to go get it. And by the time I roll out, I'm like, okay, good, I'm up. So try that. Another thing you can do is set an alarm reminding you about the amount of time you spend on social media. Respect your boundaries by honoring the time you've set for yourself. I say that last part because I know some of y'all like, well, I'll just ignore it or I'll swipe through it. That's why it's important to respect your boundaries by honoring the time you set for yourself. So practice keeping it real with yourself. So when you see that timer come on, fight it as hard as you can and be like, okay, social media is done. I'm talking to myself, okay? Practice following your own boundaries that you set, all right? Another thing, unfollow, block, and mute people who make you feel uncomfortable. That could be your parents, that could be your siblings, that could be your cousins, anybody in your family, that could be your friends, that could be anybody that makes you uncomfortable. And like the book has been telling us, if it makes them that upset where they get mad at you, the boundary needed to be set anyway because they entitled and they think they need access to you. Okay? No, you can control and curate your environment. All right? So those were some boundaries to consider. Now, on page 245, she talks about infidelity as a result of inappropriate online interactions. I think this is major important because a lot of stuff couples be going through it with these social media. I've been there. What I think may be an innocent conversation may not seem like an innocent conversation to somebody else. So, you got to communicate. She says here, if you're in a relationship, create some boundaries about technology usage. When couples haven't communicated their boundaries, unspoken ones are guaranteed to be violated. All right? And she gives us some social media boundary questions for couples like these. Is it okay in your relationship to follow exes or people you've had sexual relationships with in the past? It depends. Because, it got to be like, I'm 34, I'll be 35 in October. So I'm like, somebody that I had sex with like in high school, I feel like you should be able to follow them. Like, these are like, come on. With reasonable, like, you not interacting and having full-blown conversations with them and things of that nature. But I just feel like that shouldn't be a big deal. But if it's your significant other, if it's a big deal to them, respect the boundary. And they've communicated it with them. So how important are they to you? You know what I'm saying? Another one was, how should you address DMs from people who seem romantically interested? I don't know. Should your friend follow each other on social media? Are there any expectations of, hold on, wait, rewind. Should you friend follow each other on social media? If we're together and you don't follow me, I feel like that's a red flag. Red flag. Especially in our day, because that's how I don't know. Well, then again, I don't really post my relationship because I just kind of feel like it's work, it's business, like depending on how you use your page. But a lot of relationships, people found that as validating a relationship, but you got to communicate these things. So I think these are really good questions. Another question was, are there any expectations about posting pictures of each other? Is it okay to talk about relationship issues online or social media? And no, because half the time you guys that do talk about relationships online, whether it's bad or good, and if something bad does happen, then you mad that people still have an opinion, but it's like, well, you shared it. So I just feel like certain things should be left private. I don't think we should be talking about relationship issues online. Okay. What's your philosophy on liking sexual suggestive photos? I don't care about stuff like that. Are there individual accounts you rather your partner not follow? But these are all good questions, and I think everybody has their limitations. So we have to respect that. And if you're in a relationship, it's best to communicate what you don't like to give the person the opportunity to not do it. And if they do it, then that just shows they with it. And then you can decide whether you want to stick around or walk away for someone who cannot respect your boundary. And that goes for reasonable boundaries. We talked about that on the last episode. All right, go back and listen. That was episode 23. Hop on the boundary train. Check out reasonable expectations. Okay. So I really liked how she touched on that when it came to social media. There were some other things she discussed about how to handle fear of missing out and children boundaries when it comes to their technology as well. It's just a really, really good book to know exactly how to handle people and yourself when dealing with setting boundaries for social media and technology. All right. So what is next? Chapter 15, a now, a what? Now, if you've been listening to this podcast and you're still questioning whether you should be doing therapy or not, that's your now what. Your now what is to sign up for therapy. And I know someone who's like, you think everybody needs therapy? I think everybody should try therapy because you just don't know what you need until you try it. I feel like we've all experienced trauma and tragedy, whether it's directly or indirectly. So I think we all should try and experience therapy. I had my session signed up already after what I experienced, thinking I didn't need it. Was like, if I just work out, do the podcast, these are things that make me happy. It's gonna fulfill me. But I was using that as a trauma response, and I recognized that, and I was just like, okay, I got to go to my therapist. So I'm signed up this weekend, ready to knock it out and take care of self. And that's why I have the sponsor of this episode, BetterHelp. That's who I'm meeting up with this weekend. And yes, a whole weekend session. So there's no excuse about schedule. They are the sponsor of this episode, BetterHelp. I really appreciate BetterHelp. They are called BetterHelp for a reason. It's affordable. It's convenient, y'all. I cannot tell you enough how much I love using BetterHelp. So that's why we are partnered with them to give you 10% off your first month of professional therapy. Just go to betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's betterhelp.com/crewlove. That is also in the show notes. You can click the link and it'll take you right to it. So get it done. Now, the author has let us know some things to remember. If you go to between pages 250 and 253, I highlighted my favorite things to remember that I got out of this book. They were: respect other people's limits is a beautiful way to leverage respect for your own. It's like, if you want respect, you gotta give respect. You know what I'm saying? That's what I got from that. When someone implements a boundary, it's to help them feel safe, happy, secure in the relationship. Their limits aren't to be taken personal. Like I said, don't take it personal, baby. I'm gonna listen to that song when I get off this. But don't take these things personal. Like, even when someone, like me, I'm at the point now, when someone is rude or nasty, like, I'm like, okay, it's not about me. It's not about me. I don't know what they're going through. But yeah, and when it comes to someone setting boundaries or not wanting to do something with me, it ain't, oh, why she don't like me? She looking at me crazy. Like, you don't know what they're doing. So when someone implements a boundary, please do not take it personal. Also, boundaries are established in two parts: verbally communicating them with others, and 2, taking action, whether implementing consequences or removing yourself from interactions with people who won't or don't respect your boundaries. Listen, consequences. Sometimes that consequence looks like, I'm not talking to you because you're not respecting my boundary. Don't call me until you're able to respect my boundary. We can't go out until you can respect this boundary. Like, or we can't do this until you're in therapy. Like, there has to be consequences when people don't set your boundaries, okay? Or removing yourself from interacting with people who don't want to respect your boundaries. It's okay. Sometimes you just gotta cut them. You gotta cut it. And that's okay. Maybe they can circle back around and you guys can revisit. But in those moments when you're building up yourself, you don't have time for people to come in and tearing down what you built. Okay? I'll tell you right now, and savage may be the wrong word to use, but I'm a savage about my peace and about my energy because I've worked so hard to get there. All right? So she also says this: once you start setting boundaries, stay the course, because consistency is the most crucial part of the process. Now what? That is a now what. If you've been doing the challenges from these episodes and setting your boundaries, please stay consistent even after these episodes. Get the book. It's a good reference. Literally, it's my Bible in this book. No lie. Because that's how important my boundaries are to my life. And I'm going to be consistent with that thing because I've realized how it's helped me. Another thing, creating healthy boundaries is how you ensure that you're happy and well in your relationship and life. If you struggling with happiness and peace and all of that other stuff, check what is not bringing that and set the boundary. All right. So those are things to remember and what to do now that you know about setting boundaries. All right. These were so good. And I just cannot stress this enough, how important setting boundaries are, how great this book is. I highly recommend it. Click the link, order the book. It's in the show notes. You do not want to miss out on this book. It's also available on Audible. You can go to audibletrial.com/crewlove. That link is in the bio and show notes as well. So you can check that out too and listen to it. But I highly recommend getting it because it has exactly what you need to say when it comes to setting a boundary. She gives some very good examples. All right. So here are a few benefits of setting boundaries if you needed to be reminded. Okay. Because, there's benefits to setting boundaries. You sleep better. You have less burnout. Your relationships last longer. You experience less stress. Boundaries make you feel more joyful. And people with boundaries benefit from short and long-term value of setting them. It works. And you have to work it for it to work. Okay? So that was our book, guys. Yes, boundaries. I love setting boundaries. That trend I am good with. Okay. I'm on the boundary train. All right. So let's hop into the challenge of the week. The challenge of the week, y'all, is choose you and set all the boundaries. Set all the boundaries that's necessary for you to be a better person. Be about you. Choose you and set all the boundaries. That's it, y'all. Get the book. Start practicing being consistent with your boundary setting. All right? All right. So let's get into what would the crew do? Ask advice. I love giving advice. Is it always the best advice? I hope so. I hope so. Okay. So the question came from the crew. It was DM'd to me. It said, what boundary was the hardest boundary for you to set? And since you've set it, what has changed? All those things that I just mentioned about benefits of having boundaries. Like I sleep better. I'm less stressed. I'm less burned out. I have more peace, more joy. My relationships are better. The people that needed to fall off, fell off. And the people that are still here. So that was a benefit. That's what changed. I became a better person. I felt better. I could say top 3 that were the struggle was the time boundary, leaving when I say I'm going to leave, even when I didn't have nothing else to do. But I had to train people to respect my time. So if I say I'm meeting you at 11 o'clock and I can have lunch with you from 11 to 12, I'm leaving at 12 o'clock. Whether you show up at 11:30, whether you show up at 11:55, I'm leaving at 12 o'clock, even if I don't have nothing else to do, because you can't be late and be predicting my day. Because I work so hard. So if I got nothing to do afterwards and all I wanted to do was rest, I had to get in the habit of the time boundary. But also on reverse, when someone else is having something, I'm showing up on time and I'm being there for them and when I need to be. So, and them in turn seeing me respect their time helps them respect mine. We just talked about that. Relationship boundaries. In all of my relationships, I just started to speak up when I don't like things, and doing things like that helped because I was such a people-pleasing attitude in my relationships. When I wasn't fully confident in something that someone was doing, I would just be like, oh, okay, whatever. It's cool. It ain't that big of a deal. No, it's a big deal if I don't agree with it. And I had to learn, because there's compromise, but then there's okay, let me speak up, because it's not compromise when you don't even say how you feel. You just quiet and trying to get along and I don't want to make them upset. No, I'm having more resentment and holding all that in. So in my relationships, I've been able to speak up more and better. But those are hard to do, But I tell you, I feel better and it's less stressful and people respecting me. Okay. Another thing was showing up to things that I want to go to genuinely. Like if someone invites me somewhere and I really don't want to go, I'm not going because I feel like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do, or that's my friend, I need to come. If I ain't feeling it, I'm like, hey friend, I'm not really feeling it today and I really don't want to go. And the friends that I do have, the tribe that I have, they understand and it's cool. And I really appreciate it. And they don't give you no fight. They get it. They respect it. So those were the things that I struggle with, but it has changed my life significantly. And that's why I want to be consistent. And that's why I preach so hard about encouraging you guys to set the boundary. All right. So I cannot end the episode without giving you the quote of the week. Yes, the quote of the week is from our wonderful author, Nedra Glover Tawwab. Set your boundaries knowing that you are improving your life, not harming others. Oh, that is such a needed quote. Let me say that again. Set your boundaries knowing that you are improving your life, not harming others, by author Nedra Glover Tawwab. That is the episode for today. Come back next week. We'll be jumping into our new book, Atomic Habits. If you haven't ordered it, order it. It's also available on Audible. And I will hear and see you all next week right here on the Crew Book Club podcast. Hey! Want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we would appreciate you showing crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, thank you and welcome to the crew.